like to introduce you to Diana Sparagna.
I don't know what prompted me. I decided to go to the Pepperdine School of Business. They have mediation courses. I had some free time, and I decided to, see what this new area of mediation was all about. And basically, what it is the courts right now. As we all know, the state of California has some very serious budget cuts, and as a result of those budget cuts, the courts are closing everywhere. There's 60 courts in Los Angeles County that are closing. All these big offices, when you walk into the courthouses, they're closing. It's almost like churches are twinning, I'm sure some of you belong to churches, and churches they're low on members. So what they're doing now is the courts are closing their courtrooms. They're not hiring judges that are retiring. They're not hiring staff. And so they don't have the money to have jury trials, court trials, judges. So a whole new area is mediation. It's almost a glutton for anybody and everybody can be a mediator. There's really no, someone can call themselves a mediator and just be a good person. If you saw that movie, The King's Speech, the guy was a speech guy. He had no credentials behind his name. Actually, that's what a lot of mediators are. A lot of them are neutrals, and they're just people that know how to resolve disputes. But the up-and-coming mediation is a lot of lawyers, a lot of retired judges, and a lot of lawyers that are retiring. So, briefly, what's the difference between litigation and mediation? Mediation is two people, could be multiple parties, deciding to meet at a law office, meet at a courtroom, meet at somebody's house, and resolve the dispute with kind of like, a lawyer that can resolve the problem. And what they do is they don't give a decision. A mediator gets the parties together to make a decision to resolve the dispute. A mediator cannot touch court documents. They can't write documents. I'm not allowed to sign off on something unless somebody doesn't speak the language or if somebody's incompetent. I have to say, in my opinion, this settlement can go through because, in my opinion, as a lawyer, it's a good settlement. But ordinarily, I don't touch paperwork. My job is to get people together in the room that want to kill each other to resolve the dispute. Now, before every mediation, I forgot to tell you, they have to sign a form that I have to give to the court that says what goes on here stays here. So even if it doesn't resolve, they can't use what was said in the mediation to use at a later court hearing. So they have to sign a paper that says everything that was gone here is private. There's nothing that can be used. It's almost like a priest penitent. You can't ever discuss what went on in a mediation. Once the last person shuts the door, it's over, and you can never repeat it again. What are the benefits of mediation? Let's say you're involved in a dispute. There's a lot of entrepreneurs here. It's so expensive to hire a lawyer. You got to put down a bunch of money. You got to put down about $4,000 or $5,000. Then they want so much per hour. Then you got to live the case with these two lawyers, and before you know it, you've spent $10,000, $15,000 on lawyer fees. And a lot of times when you're in the beginning part of your litigation, I call it stage one. It's very, the parties are fighting. It's very stressful, and the lawyers are, they know how much money you have, and so they're charging you. And so it's the first, before you know it, you've spent $20,000. If you have a good mediator doesn't charge that much, and they can maybe resolve the case in a day or a few hours. Sometimes I only have 3 hours to resolve a case. And it's over and done, and I close my file, and I go in there. I usually get a one-page letter, or I get a small brief from the other side. And it takes me about an hour and a half to read it. And I get to meet the parties, the lawyers, or I get to meet the non-represented parties. And before you know it, after you talk to everybody and you get them alone, and you see what their wants and desires are, if you're a good mediator, you can put that problem to bed. I call it, you put that litigation to bed, and everybody goes home happy. Some of the things you got to remember is when they come in, you can see that they're fighting, that they're hostile. They say terrible things to each other. And they swear, they yell, they jump up and down. But from our family, that's where I came from. So it's like, you have all these explosions, and I feel like we're just getting started. So I like to get the people, get everything out. And you got anything else to say? I can swear too. I can say FC, shit. I can say all those dirty, dirty words too. And I feel cleansed when they do that. And then after everybody's had their blow up, then I make them eat, and then, sometimes I'll even let the lawyers have a little bit of wine, and then we get started. But the last mediation I did that I was pretty proud of, I had this couple from Monrovia, and it was a beautiful, probably a 23, 24-year marriage, and the married couple probably had assets of quite a bit, maybe $4 or $5 million. The sons were part of a meat packing company, and it was a very stressful divorce, and it had to do with a lot of money. And so as soon as I got to the law office, I could see this one law office didn't have, the phone wasn't ringing, so I could see that this case was paying for this law office. So the minute I got there, the first thing out of his mouth was, well, this case is never going to settle. This is court-ordered mediation, and our trial's coming up in August, so you can just waste your 3 hours here, but it's not going to settle. Well, when they say that to you right away, if they're so indignant to say that to your mouth, that kind of gives you the motivation, well, I'm going to shove this down his effing throat. So I smile, and I have my little gray dress on, and I don't dress like I'm dressed now, but I dress more conservatively when I'm in mediation. So then the girl was actually a very attractive girl, but you could see that she was making herself look like she couldn't work, or she wasn't astute. But the truth was, she had been with this guy that he's a powerball guy, and he was a spoiled son, and you could see that somebody else was paying the attorney fees, and so I think he had another girlfriend, so he really wanted to resolve the case. And the wife didn't want to resolve the case because he was paying so much in child support and spousal support, a lot of money. So I go, well, how am I going to resolve this? So as a mediator, you can do anything. You can say goodbye to the lawyers. You can make them go down to Myrtle Street and go get some coffee, and you can do whatever you want with those parties. And so I got the husband and wife together, and apparently they had 2 daughters that were doing extremely well. They were both in college, and they had sold their multi-million-dollar house, and they had put it in trust. And every month the lawyers were taking their fees out of this money that was in trust. So this case was never going to settle, and they were fighting over everything. So I figured, well, I looked at it like it was an uphill baseball game, an uphill volleyball game, and I go, well, maybe it's not going to settle, but I have 3 hours, and maybe I can get these parties resolved. So I got the husband and wife in the room, and I just started talking to them about, how rotten lawyers were and how they were taken. Now this phone's not ringing, and you've got this big shot lawyer here, and you guys just sold your house for a ton of money, and you guys should take the money and go, buying cars and go have some fun. Meanwhile, your lawyers are making all the money. I go, what? I go, how dumb is this? And I said, you're very nice people. You have 2 nice kids, and then I made him watch. I have a laptop. I made them watch a few of the scenes of Invictus about forgiveness, about reconciliation, about, even though parties can be divorced, they still have a family, and they still have to resolve, they still have to be leaders in the family with the children, and they still have to be honorable and treat each other with respect, especially if it's a long marriage. And so I must have been with them for about an hour and talking. I told the wife, I said, you're stunning. You've got this gray hair. Go bleach your hair. You know. She let me talk to her, and then I was telling him, I go, it's obvious your dad's paying his lawyer fees. And I said, why don't you guys move on? So I think after about an hour and a half, I was able to get them to pretty much come to every single issue. And they resolved it by themselves, which they were ready to resolve it because the case was about 3 or 4 years old, and they kind of got it that they were spending so much money. After you listen to the parties, you have to hone in on the big issues. And the big issues are the money issues first. How much is the entrepreneur going to get for cutting up his restaurant? How much is the spouse going to get? How much is the dog bite victim going to get? So you want to hit the money first, and you want to hit that big issue first that's been holding up this case from settling. So you hit that big issue first, and once you get the parties to figure out how much money it's going to take to settle it, everything else just settles, because you get them over that big hump, how much it's going to cost them, and everything else is just gravy after that. And then after I finished that case, then you have to go down the elevator, and I went down to the second floor, and I was doing another mediation down there, and that was like a $12,000 mediation, but you're working just as hard in a $12,000 mediation as you are multi-million dollars, because you're dealing with people's feelings and how they look at life and how they look at lawyers, and when they get involved with conflict, how do you resolve the conflict? How do you let them get rid of it and find peace in their life and move on? So that's a little bit about me. If you have any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer any of them. And if you have any lawyer questions about, if you have any particular questions about law, I'd be willing to help answer some of those questions.